Hi, big guy. Look at Casper. Now, when he comes up here and rubs up against me like that, and he gives me a kiss on the cheek, everybody's like, oh my God, he loves you. No, he doesn't. I really try to stress this to everybody all the time. Casper does not love me. I love him. He does not love me. And this is actually one of the biggest things that my followers like to argue with me about in the comments. Everybody's like, well, I can read Casper's aura and I know he would never hurt you. And yes, he would. Now, Casper does know me, but he at the same time would absolutely bite me if I were to do something like really foolish. And like, really foolish? You just had him against your face. Yeah, because I know how to do that. It's actually not foolish at all for me to do that. I know how to do that. But come here, buddy. We'll get him back over here so he doesn't come up behind George and bite him in the butt. Casper, come here, big fella. Come here, buddy. We'll get him back over here. But yeah, so anyways, though, I just really like to try to drive this home. You guys hear me say this all the time in other videos where I'm like, you know, he is trained. He is not tame. That's another one of my like catchphrases pretty much at this point. Casper, come here. Come here, buddy. So, and I do mean that though. He is trained. He's not tame. And what I mean by that is like he comes right up to me like this. And if I do this, I'm fine. If I do everything right like that, I'm fine. At the same time, if I take my hand and I were to like, and I did move out of the way, he would have just bit my hand right there. And he'd bit it and he'd rip it off and he'd swallow right in front of me. And he wouldn't feel bad about that. You know, and that's what I mean when I tell people like, he doesn't love me. He doesn't bond with me. He's not a pet. He's a trained wild animal that has all of his wild animal instincts. Like, you know, we talk about this a lot in the domestication video. If you want to roll back to that one and watch it too, I'll probably repeat some of the stuff off of that. But like, I really just have to drill that home to people because a lot of people, what they do, I guess, is they conflate love with training or love with intelligence. And just because he's an intelligent animal and he does know me, he recognizes me, familiarity does not equal love. Okay. And I think that's what a lot of people have a really hard time understanding. And just like, yes, he absolutely knows me. He knows who I am. He's not going to attack me right now because he knows what's up. He knows the situation. You know, we've done this many times. But at the same time, if I were to like, oh, and I trip and I fell right next to him right now, if a branch fell, which is a legitimate fear of mine, by the way, these branches fall all the time. One of those branches fell and hit me in the head and I just like, ran into Casper. He's going to kill me and eat me. Like, no doubt about it. And that's what I mean when I try to explain that, like, he doesn't love me. He doesn't bond with me. Oh, but he treats you different than he does other people. Well, yes, he does. But again, you can't confuse that with love either. Just because you know one person is cool and you're comfortable with them, and then a stranger comes along and you're not cool and comfortable, that means you automatically love the person that you were comfortable with? No. Being comfortable with somebody and realizing they're not a threat and they're not going to hurt you does not equal love again either. You know, a lot of people confuse a lot of these emotions with like love or something like that when it's just simply not the case. And by the way, there's a lot of background noise going on. We've got a lion right now going off. There's dogs over here going off. So there's all kinds of noise in the background there. But anyways, though, my best example of like how alligators, in my opinion, they don't have love like we do. And I think that because of things that I've witnessed with them, and you got to keep in mind too, like, in my opinion, you know, like to me, I feel like love is something that evolved among certain social animals to really solidify those bonds and make them stay with each other. And, you know, especially with animals that are monogamous or have some element of monogamy. Maybe they're not totally monogamous, but have some element of monogamy. Love will help have those animals bond better, and then that will lead to a higher success rate for their offspring because they are more likely to stick together because of this emotional bond and attachment, right? So that's kind of where that comes from in a lot of ways, and that might make some people mad, but we're just talking in biological senses here, okay? So, but anyway, so in their case, alligators are not typically trying to be monogamous or anything like that. In the breeding season, they usually all breed with each other and everything like that. So, and I talk about that on the breeding video too, where like some of them do seem like they do like each other more than others, and we talk about that quite a bit too. But anyways, coming back to it, it's the idea that love is definitely something that evolved in a lot of animals that have pair bonding, you know, like people or other social animals like dogs. You know, dogs absolutely do love you. They love each other because they're a very social pack animal, just like we are, you know, but they're not. So that's not within their evolutionary repertoire of of how they think, how they act. And my best example of that I've talked about in other videos, but we'll just hit it again, is, I worked with these 2 other alligators, and they were together for years, at least like 20, 30 years, something like that, male and female. Now, the male is way bigger than the female. He could easily kill the female if he wanted to. He never did. They were, like everybody says, oh, they were together forever. They mated. They're husband and wife. They're in love, whatever. And then I was there one day and I saw the female have a seizure. And like I saw it happen, and immediately like she turned over and she started like seizing in the water. And as soon as she did, the male's eating her. And I mean, they were like only like, I don't know, like, 20 feet away from me. And literally before I could even get to her to check on her, he was already eating her immediately. So that's what I mean when I'm like, he doesn't love you like that. Like it's not the same, like as soon as like, again, a branch hit me, if I'm not me, I am food to him. As soon as I'm not able to defend myself any longer, or, I'm impaired in some way, then he's going to make a move on me, and he's going to try to kill and eat me. Even when he comes up to me right there, and he comes up and he bumps into me, and then I react, I interact with him, right? If I didn't react, because I've tested this, if I were to let him come over and he's going to bump me, he's going to be like, that's what he's going to do. Okay. And I actually got a really cool story where I did test that one time. There's another gator I had worked with for many, many years who is, just as chill and calm as Casper is right now. And this was at a different park, but it's just like this, super calm, super chill. I've trained over 20 alligators to be nice and calm and chill and know their names like Casper. Like he's not a unique alligator, just because people ask that one all the time too. But anyway, so this one, super calm, super chill. After I'd already trained him up and everything, this gator hadn't tried to bite me in years. And, just like Casper, when he first came from the wild, they all try to bite when they first come in. But once they're trained up, like, he doesn't, like, try to attack me. He's nice and calm, right? Same with this gator, right? So I sat Indian style in the enclosure for a minute. And I was just sitting there, just, like, kind of chilling, and I saw that gator. He's over there looking at me, whatever. And then, like, he turned his head, and he looked right at me. And I'm like, okay, and I'm just sitting there, like, just sitting Indian style, and then he gets up and he comes over a couple feet towards me and he sits down again, just stares right at me. And I'm like, that's interesting. And then he gets up again, he comes a little closer. And he gets up again, he comes a little closer. And over about 20 minutes, he crosses the entire enclosure, and then he's right next to me. And Casper, come here. I'll call him over because he's like coming up behind George now. But yeah, so that gator comes over and he sits right next to me and just stares at me, and I don't move, I don't react, I didn't do anything. And then he gets up again, and then he sat his head in my lap. He literally sat his head in my lap. Now, if you're one of these, Disney brainwashed people who thinks that the alligator loves me, and oh my God, this person, if you were one of these people, you die in this instance, because he sat his head in my lap, and it's so easy to be like, oh my God, he's cuddling with you, and he loves you, and oh my God. No, I knew he was going to try to bite me. Like, I know this is... He's trying to figure out what's going on. And he sat his head in my lap for like maybe, 30 seconds or whatever, sat there, and then right for my leg. And I mean lightning fast. If the only reason he didn't bite me is because I was waiting for him and I knew he was going to try something, but he right for my leg, and he actually grabbed my pants with his teeth. He ripped my pants. That's how fast it was. Even though I was at the ready, and even though I was expecting him to try something, he still ripped my pants. And it was just like, whew. Like, that was prime example of how, like, he's testing you. He's coming over, he's observing you, he's watching you, he's making sure that you're still not reacting, you're still sitting down. And, they never see me just sit there. I'm always, like, moving, I'm always doing something. So, like, he didn't move. He didn't move again. A little closer, he still didn't move. Right next to me, didn't move. Put my head on him, he still didn't move. Oh, there's definitely something wrong with the human today. Bam, go to eat him. And I grabbed his jaws. Obviously, I grabbed a hold of the jaws as they were trying to close on my leg. And as soon as I did and I reacted like that, the gator just turned around and took off. He was caught. And he took off and he ran away. And that was so funny. And then the rest of the day, he was normal with me again. It was fine. Like, no love lost, right? That's the phrase. It's very apt for this conversation. But yeah, throughout the rest of the day then, he's just normal with me again. Acting like it didn't even happen, Like, oh, hey, bro, you just tried to eat me earlier. Oh, but now we're cool again, So, like, that's a really good example I have of a gator where it's like, it was a gator like Casper. Super nice, chill, whatever. And yeah, he try to take me, and that's what they will do. And that's why I'm always trying to explain to people, like, they don't love you. There's not like this mystical, magical bond, and people just want to believe that. They want it to be so true so badly. and that's what gets people killed, you know. To bring this to like, you know, kind of a darker place is like, that's where you see all these people who have wild animals as pets. And that's why I'm always preaching that wild animals are not pets, especially not apex predators. They are not pets. And I'm always preaching that because you see these people that like, they start to get like that kind of like delirium, if you will, where they're just like, oh, but I'm different, I'm special, or he's special, or, you know, there's something special here and that they won't hurt me now. And that's when you get like, oh, lady's got her face ripped off by her pet chimpanzee, or, you know, man eaten by his pet tiger, or, you know, whatever, because they're trying to treat this animal like a pet. And they start to believe like I'm special, or that the animal's special and then it won't hurt me. And then they get killed by the animal, you know. And that's why I'm trying to always preach so hard, you know, that these guys, look at, he's like going underwater right now. Where are you going? But that's why I'm always trying to preach so hard that these guys are not pets. They don't love me. And they're wild animals with their wild instincts. And if I make a mistake, you know, Casper would kill and eat me. Now, on the other hand, though, guys, I always say, too, I'm like, bro, if I was a charlatan and I wanted to lie and just tell people like, oh, he loves me because we have a magical connection and I can speak telepathically to animals and I have a mystical magic connection with wildlife that makes me so different from everyone else. You know how much people would eat that crap up? People would love to hear me say that. I'd be on all the talk shows. Magic man communicates with animals with telepathy. Like, people would love that stuff and they would believe it. Or if I made up a different story and I lied and I was like, oh, well, Casper loves me because I saved him. He was near death and I nursed him back to health and now he loves me for it. That's the whole thing with Poncho. You know, Poncho the crocodile in Costa Rica. I did a whole half-hour video on that on my other YouTube channel, Florida's Wildest. You can go check it out. Where we go into all that whole thing. Because I had literally the person on my tour I did with Casper today. They were like, well, what about Poncho, though? He saved him and he got shot and that's why that crocodile bonded with him. I'm like, no, it's not. It's the same thing as this. It's where this animal learns you're not a threat. You're not going to hurt him. And, you know, we have this kind of cool, like, understanding. But it doesn't mean that he loves me and he's, like, thankful for me for, like, helping him or saving him or something like that, you know? And again, like, if you want more on the Poncho thing, watch the separate video because I just a half hour going over that whole thing. And about how he didn't have brain damage and it wasn't because of that. It's just literally just like how I am with Casper or any of the other like 20-something alligators I've trained to be nice and calm and chill, you know, same idea right there. But yeah, so I guess that's kind of that whole conversation in a nutshell. Casper, well, I guess let me hit this really quick too, just that, well, then why doesn't he bite you? Because he's tried to bite me about 1,000 times. All the gators I've trained have tried to kill me 1,000 times. I grab them by the jaws before they can grab me. You have to handle them. You teach them to basically respect you because he knows I win every fight. Again, if you don't know me, if you just know me through my training videos, you think that's all I do. I used to be a professional alligator wrestler. Spent my whole 20s putting my head inside the mouths of wild alligators for tip money from tourists. Did alligator wrestling throughout most of my life. So I know how to actually literally wrestle alligators. He tries to bite me, headlock him, put him up on the sand. He learns real quick, like, okay, this guy's in charge, you know, like he's not going to mess with me anymore. But you can't hurt him. That's important too. So it's running the balance of like, you can't hurt him. You can't make him afraid of you, but have to get him to respect you somewhat. But then also have him understand you're not food either. And so that's kind of how we get to this point where it's like he understands I'm not a threat. I'm not going to hurt him. He doesn't have to act defensively because I'm not trying to hurt him, but he also realizes I'm not going to let him eat me either. And that's how we run this line right here where he's not going to try to attack me unless something goes wrong. If I were to trip and fall, branch hit me, you know, whatever, that's where he will try to bite you because then you're no longer you are food then, you know, so that's what we have to watch out for. Speaking of watching out, he like wandered away and went underwater. I just want to make sure, yeah, he's still over there. Make sure he's not trying to creep up and grab somebody in the leg because he will. And that's the other thing, talking about like we are right now, he does that. He'll like wander off and he'll get underwater and he'll come creeping up and I have to watch because he'll creep up and try to bite me right in the leg. So there you go, another case where like they are opportunistic and they will try to creep up, you know. But yeah, so let's run through that whole thing. He doesn't love me. He's not tame. He is trained. He's an intelligent animal. He respects me in kind of a weird way, but the respect is about that much, you know. Again, something goes wrong, yeah, he'll kill and eat you, you know. So hopefully that covered a lot of that for you guys. You know, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Any other questions you guys want me to cover in other videos. And as always, like, subscribe, share, and we'll see you guys next time.